Welcome to this episode on lighting design. Last time I promised you how my lighting design process works. I called my process if this then that. It's very helpful if you have a strategy behind your design process. You can explain it to your client. It makes it transparent and clear to him or her. It makes it for you much easier to sell all those. Well, very often when I'm training people, those coming from manufacturers or wholesalers are immediately having an idea what to do, how many luminaires go where and in which place, just when they see a task in front of them. Are those people the better lighting designers? Well, not necessarily. They might be very good, but they probably do it because they know what they have for sale, what is on stock. So they have another intention. I don't blame them for doing this, but it's probably not the very best product that they are going to offer, not of the whole choice of products that there are in the world. Lighting design, to me, is more an engineering science than a matter of art. Well, a bit of both, probably 80% I would say is engineering and 20% art. And that's why the if this then that methodology is correct. Well, think of a good lighting design. What is making it good? What is making it special? I'm not thinking about flashing and colored lights creating images. That is light with an entertaining aspect. Not as it should be, because light usually serves a purpose. Light serves either a person or the architecture, a function. So lighting has much of a serving aspect. Think of a garden, a restaurant, a museum, a shop, a house, and so forth. In those cases, light is always adding to the quality of the architecture. It's helping me to see things good, to see things how they are meant to be seen. So that's the purpose of light, not to be entertaining by itself, at least in the most cases. Well, if light is a servant, then the master is the architecture or the qualities that are in demand. So we can define our work as lighting designers if we know what are the requested qualities. Which means the better we are able to determine the requested qualities, the better the outcome will be. Let's imagine a room. And not to lose the thread, we're just looking at one part of the room. We'll be looking at the entire room probably at a later stage. We have here a reception area, a lobby of a room, and there we have 3 pedestals on which we have a piece on art on each of them. We're not knowing exactly what it is, but we can assume that it's either metal or wood, maybe painted, colored. From all these assumptions, we can define certain demands regarding the light. It means we have to have a light with good color rendering, especially in warm color, because if the sculpture is golden or wooden, it becomes very important. So if we're translating these requests into a more technical description, then we could say we'll be looking for something in the region of 2700 to 3000 kelvins lighting color temperature and a color rendering index of 19 or better, to have some figures to look up in the catalogs. But how many do we need? And where would they go? And with which luminous flux? That we'll be looking at now. Well, if the basic illumination in that room is about 150 lux, then the question would be, we want to highlight the pedestals, how much lux will we need on them? Well, twice as much? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 20, 15, I don't know. Well, I do know, but let's check. I will use Darux Evo as an instrument to find out about how much light is needed to create an accent. Well, if we go through this list of images, you will notice that 2 times, 3 times, 5 times is not sufficient. And believe me, if you see it in nature, the results are very much the same. 7 times we're getting closer, and 10 times looks quite promising. Okay, now that we know the amount of light that we need on the pedestals, it's the questions: from where should the light be coming? For good illumination of a sculpture, it usually needs light from more than one direction. If you have light just from one direction, for example from the top, you have too many shadows. If you have too much light from the side, you won't be able to see it from above very well. Therefore, it's good to have a good ratio from light from horizontal and vertical directions. The people call it museum angle. That's typically about 30 degrees off the vertical axis. Now that we know how much light we need, we have probably defined that we're going to use 2 or 3 or 4 directions, and these 3 or 4 lights should add up together to the requested amount of light on the pedestal. We have now the question how the light should be defined. Well, if I want to illuminate a very defined area, it needs a very defined spot. Many manufacturers coming to me presenting their products put their products immediately aside because they know the product they have new doesn't serve my typical purpose, which is a beam angle of 10 or 15, 20 degrees maximum. It's like with the asymmetrical light, rather a rare component, but a very, very necessary one to make an atmospheric lighting design. But let's return to the lighting design by consequence. We know how the light should be in terms of color rendering and color temperature and the beam angle and the luminous flux. Now we can look at how it should be mounted. In our case, I guess it should be ceiling mounted and recessed, and because the ceiling is wide, I want the luminaire to be wide. Now it may be round or square. I have to look at the height which is possible in the architecture for the installation purpose. So we can look at several different offers what the industry can supply, and ideally I would make a shootout to compare them with the real luminaires, not just those how they are explained in the brochures. I would like to take an example. Here in our case, I'll look at the Erco homepage, and I use the Quintessence range because they have a very helpful tool. I'm starting with 480 products just of this product range, and I can break it down with a few clicks to 16 because I said I want to have a certain size, and I have specified DALI as the interface with the to the building to the building automation, to be correct, and so I can break it down, and at the end I can see if 790 or 200 lumens will do the job better. I probably take the higher one, which is giving me the option to lower it to run at probably 50% if I want to have 400 lumens only. So this will be an approach. And I could do the same with the other manufacturers, see if Igozzini, Artemide, Modular, SLV, Spectral, Fagerhult, any one of those can offer the same. Do you remember my last video? I told you how to present. You remember there were 3 hints. And among them is to explain your thoughts about it. And that's usually the thing that I'm presenting to my client, not the final luminaire. I'm presenting the idea behind it and the concept. And if that becomes clear to him, usually the job is already very clear. So if we agree on the visual result, this part of defining the right product is usually entirely left to me. It's only restricted by building situation and the budget maybe. In such a situation, we may discuss with the client that there are further options to optimize the results. Maybe it would improve the result to reduce glare by recessing the luminaires a little bit further. It would add more to the, let's say, drama of the situation if the lights are totally out of sight and the light seems to be coming out of nowhere. I consider myself a lighting designer, not a luminaire designer. So I'm not talking about luminaires, I'm talking about light. It can be very inspiring to look at lighting design for stages, but much of that cannot be done in architecture. What some people start to do in architecture to add something special about it is adding colors, um, moving lights, which is usually to me quite useless. I ask myself very often, what's the use of it? So for me, still, light has the sense of not being an entertaining piece by itself, but to serve a purpose. That's my understanding on how to illuminate. If you've got a different viewpoint, that's fine. Share your opinions with me. I'm looking forward to those. And look forward at the next video where I'll be explaining different strategies on how to illuminate a certain area. My name is Michael Imke.